From the mind of Shay Hahn comes a story that features one of our favorite topics, killer whales. But this time, it's not in movie form. So bury your loved ones and swallow their ashes because you're listening to a Kind of Garbage podcast comic edition.
It's a kind of...
This is a comic that I purchased at, it was a comic show in Peterborough, right, Adam?
Yeah, I think it was either Peterborough's first or second annual Peterborough Comic Book Convention, or not Comic Con, but whatever it was called. It was ran by David Wildstar.
And I went with you and just kind of walked around. Shay Hahn had a booth set up, correct?
Yeah, I think it was right beside Dan Collins, Peterborough comic book creator who did comics like The Beard, Tractor Lad, and then he also had, I think it was Little Aurora Man, if I remember correctly. And he's written some stuff in Archie and I believe Captain Canuck as well, or Canuck Adventures.
So as we were walking around, we walked past his table, and I saw he was selling issue 1 and 2 of Homeless G-Man, which he had a couple like loose copies on his table that I flipped through, and I definitely dug the art style. So I thought, why not? I picked them both up, and I absolutely love both of these comics. I almost I believe it's only 2 or 3 issues long. And I kind of never really thought about it after initially reading them because it was already like a discontinued miniseries from 2016. So we had tried to do something where you were going to go through one of my comic book boxes, find a comic to talk about. Funny enough, you picked out this one, which I definitely was thrilled to talk about. The comic's a 32-page color comic that consists of 2 different stories, both involving the title characters, the homeless G-Men. The first story is Jaw Bonin, and the second, which is about a killer whale, and then the second story is called Moon Stomp, which is about werewolves. So I definitely thought it was funny that I had forced you to watch a Jaws knockoff movie called Orca. And I think
after watching previously a Jaws movie, like as episode 1, which not too many people have heard.
I keep making you watch these Jaws knockoff movies. I remember once we got to Orca, you were like, I can't buy a killer whale. Like, even though, yes, they're dangerous, but you're like, I can't buy a killer whale. Like, this is just too much. And I completely forgot the first issue and the first story in Homeless G-Men is about an escaped test killer whale that accidentally inhales the ashes of the officer's name is Splash Wiseman.
Oh, just that his name's fucking Splash.
Well, his nickname's Splash. That's what
Okay.
That's what the Homeless G-Men call him. At the same time of this whale escaping, the Homeless G-Men rent a tugboat. They're going out to dump Splash's ashes in the ocean for a burial at sea. It's like an assortment of mafia characters who are, I guess, antagonists to the Homeless G-Men. They're also separately out on the ocean paying their respects to one of their nemesis.
I think that, even as the bad guys, is so noble that they're actually paying the respects to Splash, who I guess they put a hit out on him. They got him killed, and they're like, you know what? We liked him, but he was honing in on us. He was literally bugging these bad guys to the point where we need to fucking kill him. We like him, but he needs to go, and we feel bad about getting rid of him.
The comic is jumping between 3 storylines right now, between researchers chasing a whale that has accidentally inhaled the ashes of Officer Wiseman, the mafia that are in a little boat, or are they on the shore? They're actually on the shore. They're on a beach of the ocean, and they're about to throw a wreath of flowers that says "Rest in Peace" into the ocean in respects for their nemesis. And you have Swinnerton, Boy Scout, and Excelsior, who make up the Homeless G-Men. They're basically just sitting there drinking on a tugboat, being like, this one's for you, Splash. As things really kick off when the wreath hits the water and then a giant killer whale jumps up to like intercept it and then tackles the mafia and yells out, "You're under arrest." And without missing the beat, like the first thing the mafia says is, "But we killed you." Like they know they know it's Wiseman.
So yeah, Wiseman inhales the ashes. His soul is now in this killer whale. Somehow, straight away, they're like, "It's Wiseman."
Yeah.
It makes no sense. I love the story so much.
Yes. So he ends up knocking them all into the water, and then he starts doing like killer whale stunts on top of them while yelling justice. And the mafia starts swimming towards the homeless G-Men boat, and the ocean researchers are trying to chase the whale at the same time. At this point, only one mafia guy is left. He's just about to make it onto the boat when the whale jumps up and eats him, and then does a majestic jump over the tugboat of his homeless G-Men partners, and he yells out, "Justice has been served, my friends." And without missing a beat, the homeless G-Men look up and they go, "That's Splash."
From what I remember at the beginning of the book, I'm pretty sure it has a note that it was drawn and there was no story planned for it, and the story was ad lib.
Yeah, it's a great job. Like it's a fun, ridiculous story. Yeah, so the first two stories in this issue, it said they started out, they're basically just a rough outline of like a concept of a story, which was he kind of wanted like kind of a more ridiculous version of the A-Team. So like a group of like not even superheroes, but like a group of like problem solvers. But instead of it kind of being grounded, he wanted it like the ridiculousness dialed up a few notches just to really take it into like the fantasy realm. And I think it does a great job. Like the first story's insane. And then this second story, like really like keeps up the pace. It's you have Swinnerton and Boy Scout tracking down werewolves. And then just getting into like a huge fist fight with werewolves. The werewolf fight's amazing. Like it's it's like really over the top and gritty, but still fun.
So in that story, Boy Scout, he's like he must be superhuman because he's being eaten and he just like bursts out of werewolves. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? Because they don't explain any of Boy Scout's powers or like if he has powers, what type of like human he is. He's just getting like bit by werewolves and then burst like he gets I think gets swallowed by one and he just bursts out of it and it's insane. Mainly because there's no context of who he is or what he can do.
Yeah, so it's kind of explains Swinnerton as like the concept is that they were police framed for a crime, but instead of going on the run, they just become like underground police. So they're still acting like police, but they're not answering to anyone. Boy Scout's power, I believe, is that he's always prepared, which I thought like the gimmick would have been that like because he has like a satchel and a canteen and some stuff with him. I thought the gimmick was going to be that like he always had an item that would have been useful for the other homeless G-men. Like he's always prepared. But instead, they just make it so that like his power is that like he's an unkillable immortal. Doesn't really make sense.
The way that the comics drawing kind of reminds me of Terror Assaulter.
Yeah, I see that.
Not in the sense of how wooden the characters are, but just how I think this is the second book that's reminded me of Terror Assaulter. Just how ridiculous it is. Not as actually, it's more over the top than Accident Man.
Yeah, but it's trying to be like Accident Man. If you explain Accident Man, it's very hard to understand that like it's very tongue in cheek. Like if you say he's a hitman and you know the everyone's after him and he's the best in the business and he's caught up in like this spy story and like he's got to rescue a girl and the girl's like a like a femme fatale character and whatever. Like it sounds like, okay, I've read this comic a million times, but like when you actually read it and see how it's delivered, you're like, this is ridiculous. Like this is so over the top. And I find that Homeless G-Men's kind of the same way. Like if you explain it as you have a group of former police officers who have kind of become self-styled superheroes going after crime, and here they are trying to arrest like a group of werewolves. It sounds ridiculous, but when you actually see how like the format of like the art is done, like Swinnerton has a werewolf full on in a headlock and just like gives it the Steven Seagal neck snap. Like like it's so ridiculous.
One of the things we didn't mention is right at the beginning of the book, before we get into the two stories that's introducing all the characters. And I want to say they're making onion rings, I think, but it makes it look like they're dismembering a body and chopping it up.
So so in the back to the first story, I believe the gimmick is that they've reclaimed the body of their friend, Splash, and they have to dispose of his body. So they're going to hack his body up and like bury it at sea. And then you kind of have this, like, it doesn't show the body, but it shows them each with like a hammer and everything. And they're chopping stuff up. And then the next panel goes towards like stuff being dropped in a deep fryer. And it's them eating onion rings out of a basket.
As I was reading, I'm thinking, what are they doing? And then, yeah, you see that's just onion rings. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's so bizarre that I'm upset that when we were there, I didn't grab a copy of this from Shay.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I did. And yeah, it only did run for the 2 issues according to CanadianComicBooks.fandom.com.
Yeah. I'm glad I got it. Like it reminds me of another comic I got. I can't even remember where I got it. I think I actually got it at Comic Alley in Whitby.
Did you say Whitby? Comic Alley's in Oshawa.
Sorry, Comic Alley in Oshawa. I'm trying to remember. It was a comic called Evil, and it was about a professional wrestling tournament where like these former wrestlers are going to like try to reclaim their glory, but then like demons have also entered the tournament. So there's like these Hulk Hogan knockoff characters like actually wrestling like 20-foot tall demons. It's very odd, but it reminded me of this where when I read it, I'm like, it has a very cool art style. It's a very interesting story, and I definitely dug it.
It's funny that you mention Evil at Comic Alley, because when I was there last week, I definitely saw, I think it was issue 3 with the yellow cover and then the guy's head sideways, the one that you gave me that you had a double of.
Yes.
And I was just like, oh, do they have more of Evil? No.
It's getting hard to find that one too. I'm trying to remember. I think his name's James Edward. I had talked to him over, I think it was Facebook or Twitter. I had messaged him over and he didn't have any copies left for me to buy. I was trying to buy the last issue. Maybe I'll shoot him a message again and see if he ever did a reprint, but that's another fun one we should do an issue. We should do an episode on.
Yeah, I can't remember if you mentioned it during our last comic episode where he offered to send you a PDF and you're like, I want it physically.
Yeah, I'm bad with that. Like if I want to, I don't know. I like actually having the physical copy.
Me as well. Like between single floppy issues and trade paperbacks, I always flip flop. Like, oh, I want this in a trade. No, I want these single. And I'll even sometimes trade with friends. Be like, hey, I'll give you my singles for your trade. Some people like that more. But yeah, digitally, I could care less.
Yeah, it was James Edward Clark, and it's from 2013. So it's getting up there in age.
I think it's sad that we can say like, oh, like this came out 2016, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where we look back, it's like, oh, it's a couple years ago. It's like, no, it's like 4 years ago, about to be 5 years ago. Like the time is flying. I think it's clear that I myself recommend this book. I had a lot of fun reading it. Hopefully, once the pandemic's over, which it's never going to happen, we can have another Peterborough Comic Con. And if Shay Hahn comes, we can definitely, I can grab these issues off him. And maybe even Beaver Dam, because I know that was the other book that he was selling there that I didn't grab. Yeah, I wish I did, but yeah, I didn't at the time, and I'm a fucking idiot for not doing that.
I remember that now. When we were there, you were looking for a copy of that book. So for the rankings, this is going to be my new number 8, just above Bad Mother. Which, by the way, when last time I was at DMV, what's the publisher of Bad Mother again?
AWA Upshot. Well, it's AWA. I think Upshot's like a secondary label, but yeah, AWA.
Yeah, so when I was at DMV on Bloor Street, they actually had a section for AWA trades, and I saw the trade for Bad Mother and everything.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so it's out.
For myself, this is an easy one. It's going to stay on my top 10 just like you. This one is going between The Death of Haggard West and Bad Mother. So this was going to be my new number 7.
Nice.
Once again, thank you everyone for joining us. We hope you tune in next episode, whether it be comic, TV show, movie, no fucking clue. So thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
As always, you can find us online through our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram, both at A Kind of Garbage. You can also email us at akindofgarbage@gmail.com with any questions or comments you may have. Be sure to check us out at akindofgarbage.com, where you can find links to our Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube pages, as well as our Patreon page at patreon.com/akindofgarbage, where you can get access to our private Discord channel and Patreon exclusive podcasts. Thank you again for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time.
All right. So, like I said earlier, I got to go to Comic Alley Toys where I was dropping off a friend of mine some action figures. I bought myself a sweet fucking Transformer. Nobody can see it, but it's Optimal Optimus. I finally broke and bought it. Normally, when I go there, I look in a certain adult box. I didn't this time, but I did find some rather, like, I guess, PG 14 comics. I think one was Poison, the other one is Pantha? I fucking can't even pronounce this. It was just some rip-off Vampirella lady. Two of the two of the comic books that I'm most excited about is, well, I guess three. I bought Plan 9 from Outer Space 30 years later, which is 100% original material, and it's the authorized sequel to the worst movie ever made.
Nice.
Which we watched, and to this day,
I know you struggled with it.
Yeah, and then I also got published by Now Comics, Universal Soldier Part 1 of 3, based on the major motion picture, which I need to get 2 and 3. Because as you know, comics based off movies, that's my bread and butter, that's my jam.
I know you love it. I went to BMV in Toronto, and I grabbed you a comic. I grabbed, they have like a glass countertop at BMV in the corner where the register is. And they kind of have either underneath the counter or behind the counter, they have some comics that are either like not suitable to go out on the floor, or they're comics that have like special pricing so they don't match up with like just the dollar bins or whatever. So it was dead. So I thought, why not look for some books for Adam? So I went up to the shopkeep and I said, may I please see that stack of mature rated comics? And the guy brought them out, and one of the first ones that I saw was a Milo book called The Snowman, and it was $9, and I didn't even flip through it. I just said, perfect, I'll buy it. I know Adam's a fan. And then I got it home and I texted you, and I had gotten you a Milo book before from there where I bought it for very cheap, and then it ended up being worth a little bit more on eBay. Mm-hmm. So I was excited that I got a $10 book for you because I was hoping that it was going to be worth like $40 or $50 at least. And I think you said you found it for like $15 plus shipping. So,
which is still fine.
It's still fine. It's not the great find I was kind of hoping it was. And then to add insult to injury, I flipped through it when I got home, and it isn't even an erotic book.
They just saw Milo's name on it, and they're like, "Oh no, there's gonna be fucking like tits and vaginas in this. We better not."
Yeah,
put this on
which
the floor.
I actually thought was really funny that like someone just saw the giant Milo name on it, and they just went, "Yeah, don't put it out on the floor." But
we know what the boys are looking for.
Yeah, but still, you'll get a kick out of it, and I know you have a bit of a collection of some of his work, so I thought you'd appreciate it at least.
I can't wait to take a look.
Yeah, I think that's about it for me. I had a busy week, but I managed to make time to make it out there, but I haven't been comic book shopping in a long time.
Yeah, we need to go to not now to Toronto, but because it's getting way worse.
Yeah, which is frustrating. I looked up. What did I look up? I looked up BMV, and then I looked, and they were open as long as you had a mask, and they were limiting the amount of people in the store. And I looked up Beguiling, and Beguiling is still doing no in-store shopping.
Wow, that sucks. How am I supposed to go to their stuffy basement?
Yeah, which sucks. Bad. Like, I think Beguiling's one of the coolest comic shops around.
I would say that they're amazing for browsing and just if you're going in with a plan like, look, I'm gonna buy shit, I have no idea what I'm buying. I want to see what kind of stuff you have, and you have stuff I'm going to buy, without being allowed to actually look around at a place like the Island. That must hurt them so much.
Yeah, but they have been doing like they were doing free delivery anywhere in Toronto if you bought books.
Mm.
And they were doing like I think you could do like web shopping or even call in. You could call in and ask them. And they are one of the more knowledgeable, like obviously other comic book shops are knowledgeable about comic books, but as far as their inventory goes, like anytime I've gone into Beguiling and asked them questions if they've had these books in stock, they remember having them in stock. They remember them being sold out. They remember if they got moved to a different area. Like they've always, anytime I've ever like said a book, they've always been super helpful. Like, do you remember when we used to go and the basement was closed?
Yeah.
And I just said, like, would you guys have Paul Pope books in the basement? And the guy was just like, give me 20 minutes. And the guy just went into the basement and brought back like 3. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's really impressive that like, the guy knew he had them, knew where they were. And he actually had like the motivation to be like, instead of just telling this guy like, nah, man, he actually was like, yeah, I'll make a sale.
I think that's the power of the mom and pop shop, where like they're invested in their actual store, not like a corporation where you have just a bunch of teenagers like being till jockeys, not giving a shit what you buy. They just want you in and out. This place cares. And they want you to buy their stuff and come back over and over again.
Yeah, for sure.